This is the High Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm Eric Balkman from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour and the FFPC. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Balkman and the FFPC on Twitter at FFPC. Before we get into the show, I want to remind everyone that you can get a listeners-only 10% discount to RotoViz by using the code RVRadio2022. That's RVRADIO2022. Your subscription gives you unlimited access to all of the RotoViz content and tools, and it supports the podcast channel. Now, without further ado, here's the latest edition of the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown. Hi, hello, and welcome to a special Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern start of the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown. I'm Eric Balkman. You know me from the High-Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Fantasy Football Players Championship, and the High-Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network. You can connect with me on X at Eric Balkman, EricBalkman. It's right down here on the screen. I'm putting the wrong way, right here. There it is. I am going to tell everybody right now at the top of the show that if you have not tried the FFPC Weekly Challenge, you should do so. MyFFPC.com is where to go. MyFFPC.com. Enter for as little as $35. Win up to $2,500. The Week 7 Weekly Challenge should be live after the conclusion of tonight's Bills-Jets game. And you can play with 10 players on your team, 12 players on your team. If you want to play with kickers and defenses, it's a lot of fun. The Week 7 Weekly Challenge will be open shortly over at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be a bunch this week. More on that later on in the program. I want to give you a PSA at the top of the show. Within the last 10 or 15 minutes, James Cook has been ruled out of tonight's Bills-Jets game. He will be inactive, according to Adam Schefter, and I believe Ian Rappaport reported it as well. So if you have a pivot between, Ray Davis or maybe Braylon Allen, which is what I did in one of my leagues, or perhaps Ty Johnson, get those guys in there now. Khalil Shakir, who is active, you have the opportunity to do so. We are about a little over an hour from kickoff tonight. So once again, James Cook, inactive tonight. I want to welcome in my guest and bring him on, a guy that I have not had on in years, and my fault more than his, because I love talking to him. Dozens upon dozens of high-stakes fantasy championships under his belt, and he began this past week in 5th place in the FantasyPros Championship overall as he chases that $1 million grand prize. Please welcome the Mastrodamus himself. It is Craig Mastro. Craig, welcome in, man. Thanks so much for hanging out with me.
Eric, thank you so much. Good to see you, man.
It's good seeing you. What's life like at the top of the FantasyPros Championship leaderboard?
Man, you got to love FFPC just every year. It's just a great thing. And I was actually 4th when we started, then I made it to 2nd.
So now you're in 2nd. Do you have anybody going tonight?
I'm in 20th. No, okay. And that team needs to survive a win here, so it'll be in like 5th place. You know how this is the bye week for week 6 for everybody?
Yep.
So it's holding on to 5th, and I got all the numbers here for the 3 players that could possibly beat me, but hopefully they won't. Yeah.
So who are you rooting against tonight then, Craig?
I am rooting against Hall, Wilson, and Allen. So Wilson,
I should say Josh Allen or Braylon Allen.
Josh Allen.
Okay.
And thanks for the heads up, because I replaced Cook with Braylon Allen.
There you go. That's what we got to do. That's why we're here.
You guys are the best.
Well, thank you, Craig. Appreciate that. I want to go to YouTube right away for our first question. Michael Kunzel is in the chat. He wants to know, in a half-point PPR, would you pick up Evan Engram over Jake Ferguson? I want to keep both these guys on my roster. If that's the cut I have to make, I'd rather keep Ferguson. I'm more bullish on Ferguson the rest of the year than Engram. Are you, Craig?
Well, I have Engram on. I've got 29, I think, 350 teams, and about 8 or 9 of them have Engram. So I was always high on Engram. But I think for a half a point, I'd have to agree with you. I'd go with Ferguson. He's got more opportunity for a touchdown, I think. Ingram's just more of a dump off, and that's that whole thing with the Jaguars and Trevor's just he finds them, which is great. That's all he can throw to, though.
Yeah, it's true. Ingram did have a big week. I think he had 10 catches this week in his first game back. But
for 102,
he's just been so consistent. Ferguson has, and winning or losing, it seems like he's involved and he's putting up a lot. So I would rather keep Ferguson on my roster.
Got to go with Ferguson. I agree with you.
And Michael also says, well, can I drop DeAndre Hopkins? I think I'd rather drop Hopkins than Ferguson at this point. I'm just, that Tennessee offense. I watched somebody put together a clip, Craig, of all the targets that Calvin Ridley saw yesterday, and they were all horribly thrown by Will Levis. The Tennessee Titans offense, man, it's just not a offense I want to be in business with this year.
I was at the casino and I was watching the first game, and it was funny. Yeah, ball was going this way, going that way. It didn't matter to Trevor. He was just missing them all except for number 17, I thought.
I don't know if this is a question that Rubio has about because he cannot play James Cook, but how would we rank these guys tonight with Allen Lazard, Khalil Shakir, and Ray Davis? If he can only play one or two of those guys, how would we rank them? I am leaning towards Davis, Shakir, Lazard, but I can be persuaded here.
I'd go, David. I'd say Shakir, Davis, and Lazard. He's only touchdown dependent, and I think they're going to cover him up pretty well. But, Davis is a wild card. He's an older kind of rookie, right? I think he's 25 or something, and he hasn't played that much. But they should feed him the ball. So maybe you're right. Maybe Davis, Shakir, and then Lazard. Is that how you had it?
I had Davis, Shakir, Lazard. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I hate to just play along, but I think you're right.
It'll be interesting to see how Ty Johnson and Ray Davis are used tonight. But I do think while Ray Davis may not be out there in passing downs, the volume for him, I'm very excited about to see what he can do tonight for sure.
Do you think the sauce is going to be on Shakir?
I don't think
I don't either.
No offense to Khalil Shakir. I don't think he's good enough where they would want to have Sauce Gardner travel for. I don't think anybody on Buffalo is good enough where they do that.
He'll just stay on that one side. So however they scheme it. But Allen's going to put the guys in the best position probably.
Right. Exactly. Let's get into it tonight, Craig, and talk a little bit about George Pickens, a guy I know a lot of these guys I'll ask you about tonight. I know you've drafted a lot this year, but the last 2 weeks, again, extraordinarily small sample size. He's failed to get 9 fantasy points in either week. He gets the aforementioned Sauce Gardner in week 7. Is it being too cute in fantasy to sit him on the bench this upcoming week? Because I know most people drafted him as like a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 that they probably want to deploy him as. What do you think about next week against Gardner for Pickens?
I don't trust. I love I'm from Pittsburgh. I love my Steelers. I just don't. They're not a great fantasy team, except for Fields. I love Fields. But anyway, Pickens, I think when I watch all the games, and especially the Pittsburgh game, all their games, Pickens had probably 4 big plays over the last 6 weeks that were called back by, 77 was holding, or 73 was holding, or 80 was holding. And so I think Pickens can match up against anyone except for the Bronco guy. I think he had a rough time with who's their stud cornerback for the Broncos?
For the Broncos, Patrick Surtain.
Yeah, he's a stud. I don't think Pickens had a great. He might have had 1 or 2 catches that game, but other than that, it's just Pittsburgh's as a fantasy in whole is just disappointing. But I think you still got to play Pickens. He still will get certain targets, but I just don't see why they don't pepper him the ball. Like if he was on the Chiefs, if he was on any team that had a good offensive coordinator, good head coach that can get him the ball, like an offensive-minded head coach, he'd be right there with all the great ones. I think. He's got the ability, and he probably would stay in the game and more focused. But he's a young kid, he's got a lot of talent.
I'm excited to see what he could do if Arthur Smith was not the offensive coordinator this
Right.
year. I do like the Steelers defense too for fantasy. Fields and the Steelers D.
Oh,
Definitely,
yeah.
I have a ton of Steelers defense this year. Speaking of the Steelers, and this is great for you being a Pittsburgh guy to lead off on 2 straight Steelers questions. Jaylen Warren gets back into action this week after he missed a couple of games. I look at what he did, which was not a lot. I think he had 3 catches, probably maybe like 20 some total yards, right around there. Do we need a Najee Harris injury in order to start Jaylen Warren? Or even when Harris is healthy, do you think once Warren gets back into the swing of things, we can start looking at him, at flexing him out even with Harris healthy?
I think the issue is, again, the Steelers' offensive line, right? With the offensive line, if they're rolling, then both guys can be, by themselves a standalone flex player. Najee, I don't think he catches enough passes, and that's when I think they're waiting for Warren for that check down. And I think Fields will do great with that. And if they allow Fields to open up the field more and run like they're starting to finally, then the defenses will have to, watch him running, and then they can dump that short screen off. And I love Warren. It's, I have him on probably 8 of my or 9 teams too, like a third of my teams that I have to manage. And I love him. And I think he will get in that range of 4 to 6 catches a game, but it's going to take a little time here to get rolling. I don't know. Do you know how the Jets play against running backs in the passing game? I don't.
I would have to look that up. I know, like it's been the case this year where their rush defense has just in general against running backs allowed some pretty good fantasy days. But I'd have to look it up and crunch the numbers to see how they are against giving up receptions to running backs. My guess is they're average, but I don't know for sure.
So I think maybe I'm just overly positive. I've been waiting for Warren all this time, and if he can catch on with all the teams I have and help them towards the playoff season, about 4 or 5 games or whatever, then I'll be excited about it. But it's right now it's just a hope, and it's just how Pittsburgh plays. They don't try to open up the game. Another fantasy failure there, but a lot of great talented players that could just do a lot more with if Arthur Smith wasn't running the offense. I think.
Does Fields hold the starting quarterback job all year?
Man, I don't know why they talk about that. I mean, it's a no-brainer for me, and I think we only have him for this year because I think they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, which was silly, and $25 million for a 5th-year option for a quarterback. They could have committed to him for this year for 3, $25 million for the next year, had him for 2 years. Embraced him, made him feel secure there. You don't have to put, dangle that carrot anymore. For who? Russell Wilson? Russell Wilson single-handedly destroyed Denver. I'm not a Bronco fan, even though I've lived out here and I love the state and everything, but he destroyed that team to a point. And look at Peyton. Sean Payton said, I don't care how much we own, we got to get rid of him. And so, I think Fields holds on to it. I think they're going to hit him with a number of $52 million like Trevor Lawrence got for 4 years. And Pittsburgh's probably, with all due respect, too cheap to keep him. So I wish him luck. I love Fields.
Yeah, no, I get it for sure. I think the Steelers are one of the more interesting offenses to be watching this year, especially as we get deeper and deeper into the season with Fields as the starting quarterback. Another one that I think is interesting has been the Chargers this year, right? Because Herbert was dealing with the injury. He obviously doesn't have Mike Williams or Keenan Allen. Gerald Everett's gone off that team as well. So you're coming into the season with Josh Palmer and Lad McConkey, the guy they drafted in the first round, Quentin Johnston. Yeah, I know you have a lot of McConkey too.
Yeah.
I want to talk about specifically Dobbins because
you being a stalker there, Eric? You looking at my teams?
No, I was looking at your teams because I always try to. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point for people who watch the shows. I always try to get people talking about the players they're excited about, right?
Well, I've seen you. You're always prepared too. And Farrell, how's he doing?
He's doing. He just lost his mom last week, which stinks, and so he's been a little bit down. But he's fighting through it. But he's doing good.
What a great guy! Tell him I said hi.
I will let him know for sure. I want to talk about J.K. Dobbins because there's another guy that I think you have in a lot of spots. Arizona plays the Chargers next week. And Arizona's defense has been nothing to write home about. They can be exploited through the pass or through the air and on the ground.
Yeah.
If Dobbins is on our team, do we have to find a way to get him active next week somehow? Even if it's as a third or fourth flex, I think he's in for a big week 7, my friend.
Yeah, I started the last couple of weeks, and I just think, he came from Baltimore, and I don't know if you knew this, but like Chargers probably my second favorite team after Pittsburgh. Always from that Superchargers, with Eric Coryell.
Eric Coryell, baby.
I know, man. But Dobbins, he can catch the ball at the back. He's a sweet back, like 5'10", 5'11", 225. And he only had those injuries, but he's uber talented. And I'm glad he's off the Ravens. We got to deal with,
King
Henry, man. So, but Dobbins is, I think, can be a 2, definitely a 3, definitely a flex if you have 2 great players like Barkley and Kamara or something ahead of him. But he's right, he's right down there. He's probably a top 10 running back, maybe 10 or 12, I think.
I right now on the season, I mean, it just has to be. Just because of volume. You look
now
Dobbins,
you will, yeah.
He has hit his game logs this year, 5 games now for the Chargers. There was one game, I'm looking at it right now, 13 touches in week 1, which was his season low. Since then, he had 18 touches, 17 touches, and then this past week, 27 touches. He had carried the ball 25 times. Harbaugh loves to run the football. He's doing it with Dobbins right now. Now, it's only a 3.8 yards per carry average with against Denver. So, but to me, volume trumps that. And now you get maybe outside of Carolina and Las Vegas, so they got the first 2 weeks of the year. It's probably the weakest defense that they've played since mid-September. And that's why I love Dobbins so much this week.
Oh, and they're missing that big kid Alt, right, from Notre Dame.
Yeah, yes, they are without him.
Yeah, I think Harbaugh's that Harbaugh, the one with the Chargers, is a lot. He's a winner, and he just knows how to get things done. He tightens the ship, and he'll, I think he also he'll handicap Herbert for fantasy, but they don't care about fantasy.
No.
They're going to win. But Dobbins is the key. I mean, when he moved over there and Harbaugh had his ear to come over there and his knee cleared, that guy's a stud.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure he got a ringing endorsement. He got not only Dobbins, but they got Gus Edwards, who actually just went on IR too.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Another feather in the cap of Dobbins, at least for fantasy, that he should assume another big workload. They are 3-2 right now in the AFC West, chasing the 5-0 Chiefs. So definitely interesting to see what's going on with Jim Harbaugh and his Chargers this year.
Yeah, I think they're solid. Yeah.
We briefly talked about James Cook being reported as inactive tonight. I want to flip the script and talk about the other backfield in this game that we're about to see between the Jets and the Bills. What kind of a split do you think we're going to see tonight, usage-wise, between Breece Hall and Braylon Allen? Because it's been close to 50-50 a couple of weeks this year already, Craig.
Well, because I was looking at my teams on that particular one, not exactly on my FFPC, but a couple of my local teams, because I made a trade for Hall a long time ago, and then this year or whatever year it was, I made sure that in that league I got Braylon Allen to back him up, and I think in the beginning of the year, Hall was getting about 16 carries a game. Now it's down to like 10. But Allen's getting like 7. So that's almost even, like you said. And then in the passes, I think Hall still gets 4 or 5, and then that Braylon will get 1 or 2. So it's starting to be real even. But, Hall's a talent. And then the other kid is just even a lot bigger and probably stronger, but not as talented as Hall, you know, I think.
You're looking at that Jets-Vikings game in London last week. Breece Hall ended up touching the ball 12 times that game. Braylon Allen 6 times. So it was about a 2-to-1 usage rate.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, like, I think if you drafted Breece Hall, you're probably a little bit disappointed, more than a little bit disappointed to see not only the split, but how Breece Hall just has not been able to be capital letters Breece Hall that we're used to. And now you get Braylon Allen. It's a good problem for the Jets to have because they got a talented backup, but they're trying to get that talented backup some work too in New York, and it's costing Breece Hall owners.
It is. And I hope Hall gets one more bad game, and then he takes off just tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, no question. Marvin Harrison, I was actually at the Packers-Cardinals game yesterday. I had a blast watching. It was a fantasy bonanza for Green Bay for sure. I want to ask about Romeo Doubs. Now, he did get suspended in week 5, played week 6, and got the 2 touchdowns from Jordan Love. I know you like him quite a bit. My feeling on the Packers is I just don't know when to start these receivers because there's so many good ones there. How good of a play is Romeo Doubs as long as he's on the field, Craig? Because I think you like him quite a bit.
I do, but aren't you a Packer fan?
I am, yes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So this is right up your alley. Well, the only saving grace, I think, for Doubs with the way he acts, how talented he is, I think he's like 6'2", 205, smooth receiver, can get in and out, and they look for him at the goal line, I think. But Love has so many options, and so unfortunately, when Christian Watson comes back, I don't know why. That guy must be like more talented than anybody because they always, keep him as their number one when, Reed, I think, is better and Doubs might be. But Wicks is hurt. I think he hurt his shoulder. Yeah. So that's going to help him. But then, Jacobs, they throw the ball there. So, how many times will Love throw? 27 times, 30 times in a game, maybe. So, Doubs going to get maybe 5 targets, maybe.
Yeah.
But they seem to be crucial. I think I did something. He was averaging about 15 yards a catch. So if he caught 5, that's a good week. Right. With a touchdown, it's better. No touchdown, you catch 3, you're at 5. So you're under 10, you're at like 8. So, I like him. And when you say I have him a lot, see, I did a lot of these drafts early in July, June, and Doubs just, it just came to me. I let the draft come to me, and it would, he was great value. I forget where I get him, probably 10th round, or 8th at least.
Right. And because everybody else is breaking their necks trying to draft Jaden Reed and Christian Watson, and then Doubs falls.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think I have Watson on any team. There's certain players I just stayed away from, and thankfully, I did because it's been pretty successful so far. On that one team that I have, that main team, I'm waiting for Chubb to get going, bud.
Yeah, and I should ask you about that too, because it could be as soon as this week that we see Chubb out there.
Fingers crossed.
You're not going to start him in week 7 if he's active.
No. Okay, that's my bread, and that'll be because I think on that team I have Barkley, who I viewed the only thing last year I had a lot of number 1 and number 2 positions, Eric. I kept getting that draft position, so I had McCaffrey. So I made my money back and more that year, and then this year, as fate would have it, I was picking around 8, and so I was getting Barkley on a lot of my teams. So,
right.
And I viewed him going with the Eagles to be just maybe a step down from McCaffrey, how McCaffrey plays, and he's turned out really great in the beginning, and then I don't think he had a great game last week. But I mean, I got Kamara, him, Barkley, and then Chubb waiting there. What do you think of Devin Singletary?
Singletary, what's great about him is the Giants like him, right? The problem for him is now he's been hurt the last 2 weeks, and Tyrone Tracy's looked really good.
He's looked really good.
And I think that's so now once he does come back, you're looking at Singletary not getting the volume he was the first few weeks of the season.
That's a split. It's a big split now compared to, and it's probably not just, it's probably like he may get 2 series to 1, right? Or they're going to be 1-1. You know, I don't know.
Knowing what they did involving the draft capital to get Tyrone Tracy and seeing what he's been able to do on the field, it's really, really difficult to keep him off the field at this point. So I think, but I mean, you talk about that team, man, Chubb, Kamara, and Barkley coming down the stretch, especially if Chubb's being used the way that we all hope he's going to be used. I mean, that is going to be a massive thing for you in the championship.
And then I have Nico should come back. Collins was my P. And that's the only reason I scored like 130 this week. But, you know, I had 196, 184, 172, 170. I mean, that team was just kicking butt. And then with Collins, I still, you know, I have Njoku, I think, on that team with Freiermuth. And I just wish Freiermuth that you know, play him and get him started early. But, you know, what about that injury? Did you see the injury to and I need to know what's going on with Harrison Jr., Marvin Harrison.
Oh yeah. So I didn't. I mean, I know it happened in the game I was at, but I didn't see the play, or I didn't notice it on the play that it was on.
What do you heard?
It's concussion.
Oh, okay.
So I don't. You know, just using history as a guide, I would assume he doesn't play in week 7.
No, he's not a kid like that. You got to at least rest him until he's ready.
And remember, Malik Neighbors, he got a concussion on Thursday. Not that because I know everybody's different, but think about Malik Neighbors. He got the concussion on Thursday night, had the sort of the mini bye, the extra few days. He wasn't ready to go week 5, and then he wasn't still ready to go in week 6.
He got hit pretty hard. He got hit hard. But I know I have one team, a couple of local buddies of mine got in this one towards the end, and let's do one. And I won my first 2 games. I'm probably losing the next 4 because I had Rashid Rice and Neighbors. Like, that team's just, I've been getting torn up, man.
It does stink. I'm just reading it about Harrison. Apparently, he got his head banged against the knee of a Packers player and then needed help getting off the field. He actually tried to come back into the game, but the Cardinals stopped him. So that's where we're at on Harrison. I would imagine week 8 would be the earliest we see him again, but who knows?
Yeah, he might come back, but he's got who knows?
Yeah, so if he doesn't come back for week 7, again, Chargers defense against Arizona, Michael Wilson, you would think, would be right up there with getting the most targets on the team, along with Trey McBride. Does he become playable next week as the de facto number 1 for Arizona?
Well, no. I mean, that offense goes when Murray goes. So Murray will either run it or he'll throw that. He loves McBride. Who doesn't? Mm-hmm. And then I think is Connor still. I think he made it through the game okay.
Yeah, he did. Which it's sort of like we have to ask that after every James Conner game, right? Did Connor make it all the way through? But he did. He's good to go.
Because he went to Pitt, I went to Penn State, so they're soft over. But Michael Wilson, I don't think he's a possession guy. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think they look at him because he's probably 6'4" or something. They like him down in the red zone, and they'll try to get him there. But then McBride is a better receiver probably than him. I like Wilson. I don't love him, and then it just depends on Murray.
Yeah. And the other thing too, and Rubio points this out on YouTube, it's Dortch season. Like, we got to remember Greg Dortch, and he might be more of a possession guy that gets
for PPR, that's what I'm saying, because if it was like, okay, just a touchdown league, you got to go McBride and Wilson, but Dortch, he's probably going to catch 6 passes probably until Harrison comes back.
Speaking of these PPR, these guys that are super valued in PPR, Wan'Dale Robinson, this guy, with or without Malik Neighbors, has been producing. How difficult or how hard have you been trying, I should say, to get him in your lineups, knowing that this guy catches a handful of passes at a minimum every game, and sometimes has these blow up double-digit catch games too?
I waited till the end of every draft, almost 17th, 18th, 19th, and I would pick up all the Giants wide receivers, because a lot of times I'd go heavy in running backs. So I like Robinson, even when Malik Neighbors is in. But I don't know if you watched the game last night. I'm sure you did, but I found out a little bit was David Jones and Slayton. I think they came in the league together and they know each other. They're really good friends. And what did Slayton get the last 2 weeks? 11 targets each or something? It's crazy.
Yeah, he had a huge week 5 game last night. 6 for 57. He had 11 targets last night.
Yeah, and I mean, I have him on that main team where I'm 20th overall, and I wish he would have got a little more, right. But I was rooting for overtime in that game.
Oh, totally, yes. Robinson and Slayton both last night each got 11 targets. Slayton caught 6. Robinson caught 5. Tyrone Tracy was the story. We alluded to him earlier too. He was big with no Singletary last night.
Oh yeah. I mean, Giants are an interesting team. I don't know. Jones, you could do better at quarterback, but then I think he's starting to play a little bit better after how many years he's been in the league. And he's not afraid to run. So
right.
You could just tell when he threw that one pass and the guy missed and they knew they were going to lose. You could just, when they did a close up, his eyes just dropped. He was like, not again,
The Colts had a surprise quarterback change. I think we all expected Anthony Richardson to come back this week, or at least most of us. And then we got word Sunday morning that it's going to be Flacco starting for Anthony Richardson this week. And Flacco ends up going 22 of 38, only 189 yards. He did throw 2 touchdowns, throws an interception as well. If he is again the starter in Indianapolis this coming week, if Richardson can't get back, and the Colts are at home against the Dolphins, who are coming off a bye, how does that change your Colts pass catchers, your A.D. Mitchells, your Josh Downs, your Michael Pittmans, or even the Trey Sermons and Tyler Goodsons of the world? Are you changing what you would do with them from a start-sit scenario based on who the quarterback is?
I would because Pittman, it doesn't matter. He's economy proof, like alcohol. He'll catch with Richardson. He had good rapport when Richardson the first game or two, and then he has good rapport with Flacco. Obviously, I think it all depends with Indianapolis with James or John Taylor, right? The running back.
For Jonathan Taylor, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say James Taylor, like Rockabye Bay.
Yeah, exactly. He's somebody else completely different.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think Jonathan Taylor can strum a guitar the way James Taylor can. That's for sure.
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe.
I think Jonathan Taylor is that one. Like he was so smart in school and stuff. He's a borderline like rocket scientist, really smart kid. But anyway, I think if they can get the running game and Flacco goes with play action, that's why we're like Downs. I don't think I even drafted him once. I mean, and then you try to scramble to pick him up, but you still don't. I still can't see him as like real reliable. I mean, he's getting the benefit of every, maybe double teams with Pittman, and so I don't know. You'd have to watch, and then Mitchell kid is he's all hype right now. I think.
But I just don't think. I don't think he. I mean, this is kind of lazy analysis. Because I just don't know if his route tree is well refined enough for the NFL game at this point.
Yeah, maybe
Downs and Pittman, who are tacticians when it comes to running routes, and then Mitchell is sort of like he's fast and he can run by you, but he's got to show something else. And I think that's holding him back.
Remember Cordell Patterson, who's with Pittsburgh now? That he was I think he was a first rounder.
Yep.
Could return kicks and do that, but he sucked at route running, if I can say that word. So.
Yes, you can. I remember too. I kind of felt like the same way about DK Metcalf when I was watching him get in and out of breaks in his rookie mini camp. I'm like, this guy can't run routes. Now I was way wrong on that because he can run routes and he's been doing it pretty good.
And if you're in his way, he'll just push you.
He'll just push you over. Yeah, that's just the way it goes. Or he'll just blow on you and you'll fall over. That guy is just
huge. Yeah,
absolutely a beast. The biggest surprise in week 6 fantasy football for Craig Mastro was what?
For the NFL in general, I kind of like the Lions tearing up Dallas. Like one after another, and then you go with Tampa Bay and New Orleans. Like, does Tampa ever stop anybody? They made their defense made Knicks look good, and then now they made that rookie Rattler. So when you look at that as a fantasy, point of view, you go, was I surprised? Yeah, in an NFL games. I don't know. I'm always surprised that Pittsburgh can't get these talented guys like 10 catches. Pickens should be catching. So biggest surprise would be that blowout game. And then just how many times, it looked like the head coach for Detroit was trying to stick it to Dallas and trying to score, with those tight end or the offensive linemen. They were trying to remember in the playoffs
the play that where he reported as eligible, but
they said he didn't. Yeah, that was a great play, and they let it. That's stupid.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't have a great answer for that surprise. Like any one person. I mean, I was shocked that Tracy can play that well.
Yeah.
He kind of reminded me. You ever do fantasy basketball where there's a great stud that's a point guard, and his backup, like that point guard goes down, and then that rookie or whatever, that other point guard who's behind him, he'll score 36. It's like, wow, those guys are just talented, and you don't see it because it's so much politics and stuff.
What about how about this for a surprise? And this might lead us into our the final question here for you, Craig. Sean Tucker, 14 carries, 136 yards, and a touchdown. Bucky Irving, 14 carries, 81 yards. Obviously, Rachaad White did not play that game. But your thoughts on Sean Tucker here going forward? Is this a thing, or is he going to go back to irrelevance if Rachaad White comes back this week? Okay. All right. We'll bring it up.
No, I mean, what the hell did that kid get into? 136 yards, a touchdown. He had some. I don't know. I mean, I think they've been looking for a reason to show White the door. I don't think he's as physical, and those two guys are just, they were banging it. But is it because New Orleans defense stunk, or right. I don't know. But I like Tucker. There's a few guys. I had some notes, but I don't know. I mean, I go through all my teams even while the game's going on. The Sunday night game, and I got so many teams I got to manage, like 29 of them, that I have to, get on it because I still have a regular day job there, Eric,
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Whenever I can.
So I'm not going to ask you what you're going to do on the waiver wire. Do you think Sean Tucker is going to be the guy that goes for the most bidding dollars in most FFPC leagues, or is there somebody else out there?
I think he might. And then I always like to see in the league through all the weeks how much people actually bid. If they bid 400, like what's the max bid that in that league, who would do it? But you got Amir Abdul, Ernest Johnson, maybe, right? Like for cheaper. So if you put those guys behind Tucker and you do a fair thing for Tucker, if that's who your main guy is, and then you might catch those guys for $1 or $2. And they might be just as good, but because like you said, I don't know do you know how much White is getting? Rachaad White? Is he in his rookie deal still?
I'm going to look that up right now. I'm pretty sure he is though.
So if he is, they might not, running backs, they like to screw over anyway. So right. They'll probably let him go but I think Sean Tucker, depending on how old he is, I think he's bounced around the league a little bit, hasn't he?
Remember, okay, so here's the thing. So real quick with Rachaad White, he is a free agent after next season. So they have him under contract for this year and next year. But then after that, he's a free agent. Sean Tucker was a guy that was actually touted as being like a day 2 pick. And this is probably 2 or 3 years ago now, as a day 2 pick. They found like a heart condition or like some sort of flutter. That gave a lot of teams pause, and he dropped to being undrafted. And now he's still with Tampa. Like Tampa signed him as an undrafted free agent. And he's been with them this whole time, but it's always been, Rashad White was there. They had Chase Edmonds floating around there the last couple of years, and now they drafted Bucky Irving. So I kind of was just made up my mind, like, okay, he's never going to be a thing in Tampa. And then he pops off 190 total yards, gets in the end zone, receiving the ball and rushing the ball this past weekend against New Orleans. And now I'm rethinking the whole thing.
He's playing Baltimore next week at home, though. He's only 23. That's the good thing. I thought he was older. So if he was 26, I'd be like, nah, you don't need to pick him up because he's probably a wash, had a good game. But I think after that, against Atlanta, KC, then San Fran. I mean, it's no walk in the park.
Right.
But I like him. I mean, yeah, you know that. I mean, everybody's going to go after him. And I'm hoping nobody in my top league will go after him. Exactly. And I get Eric, you know what? I was kicking myself because I had Eric Gray, on that team. I still have him. But on Sunday morning, I was just going to pick up that Sean Tucker when they said White was out. And I just didn't. And it was like, I could have had him for $1.
You could have, yeah.
And then you just see how he goes, But the biggest surprise, I don't know about week 6, but I will tell you this. Carson Steele, God, he had everything right there. He drops the ball that one time that they're going to start him because of, Pacheco getting hurt. He had everything. Yeah. Man, they wouldn't even have gone after Hunt. And that I feel bad for that kid because he could have been special. And I have him on a ton of the teams, or I had him. And is Troy Benson going to do anything behind Connor?
My guess is no.
Okay.
A lot of these, I don't know how you feel about these rookie running backs, but I feel like, especially when I'm playing Dynasty, I'm drafting these running backs at the end, unless it's like a Bijan Robinson or something.
Right.
But these other guys that go on rounds 2 or rounds. Number 1, I don't really have any interest in any rookie running back that in my Dynasty drafts that is drafted on day 3. It's not worth it for me with limited rosters, what have you. But these 2nd and 3rd round running backs, I always think like maybe there's a pathway their rookie year, but there probably isn't. But then that 2nd year, that's usually when you can start looking at starting these guys. Unless Connor goes down, I don't really see a way that you can flex out Benson this year.
You want to hear a fun note? The year that Russell Wilson was a rookie, right? Mm-hmm. And Chris Johnson was a rookie, I think the same year. I ended up getting I drafted in Vegas on a main event team. I think I picked Chris Johnson in the 10th round. And that I finished 5th overall in the main event that year. I think it was with the one it was either with FFPC or the one FFPC took over World Championship.
Yep.
One of those. But I missed first place by 20 points. And the only reason was Matt Stafford. I had him and Russell Wilson, Eric. And Russell Wilson was going into Buffalo that game in the final game of the playoffs, and always comes around my birthday, December 22nd, for the championship, right? And I put in Stafford. I mean, I wish something would have happened and Stafford would have been hurt, because he was always hurt. And then I would have just had to play Wilson. And came in 5th by 20 points. And the swing was, say Stafford scored 20 points that day.
Yeah.
Wilson had 40 because he ran in 4 touchdowns. That's another reason I don't like Russell Wilson. Turns me over, man.
That's so frustrating.
Get him out of Pittsburgh, baby.
That was now that year when you got Chris Johnson in the 10th. Was that the year that he had the 2,000-yard season?
I don't remember. I don't think so because he was getting screwed at the goal line with Lendell White, I think. Remember him?
Lendell White. Yeah, I met him actually.
Colorado boy that went to USC, I think. Yeah. And he was getting all the touchdowns, and I didn't have him. But Chris Johnson was catching balls out of the back, and he had a great year. It could have been greater if he could score touchdowns. But
Let me ask you this. I wanted to, when we were talking about that Tampa New Orleans game, I wanted to come back to that real quick. So Spencer Rattler was the quarterback this week, and you always hear about these backup quarterbacks feeling more comfortable tossing the ball to the guys he's normally tossing it to on the practice squad, right?
Yep.
And you think about Bub Means, Cedric Wilson, those guys, Mason Tipton, Jordan Mims, what have you. Chris Olave had one catch. Rashid Shaheed had one catch with Rattler. And this is a game that New Orleans had a flurry of points in the second quarter and then had to throw in the fourth quarter to keep up, but they couldn't do it. How concerned are you about Olave and Shaheed as long as Rattler's in at quarterback?
Very. I mean, in one of my home leagues, I think I have Pickens, Rashid. It's one you could play 3 wide receivers and Olave. And Olave the whole year he's such a stud in real life. And then, I don't know, he's just not getting the ball. Even with Carr, he wasn't getting that much.
No, he wasn't.
I mean, the only thing I can think of, because I have Kamara. Yeah, he had 8 targets. So he's like alcohol too. He's economic proof. So they'll do that check down, but he only had 24 yards. He had a touchdown. I mean, he's solid. And just hope that well, how bad is who?
Carr? Are you talking about how bad is
No, the other Mr. like Tebow, the runner.
Oh, Taysom Hill.
Yeah,
I feel like they ruled him out pretty early this past week.
Okay.
So that probably doesn't bode well for week 7 for him. Olave, just to get back to him real quick. Dude had 8 for 87 against the Falcons. That would have been week 4. Outside of that, 2 for 11, 4 for 81, 6 for 86, 2 for 10, and now 1 for 5. Not trending in the right direction right now for Olave.
And why is that? Why?
Well, Rattler has something to do with it, I think. But I don't, you think back to week 2, Craig, when we were all ready to anoint Clint Kubiak as the offensive genius of the NFL, where the Saints put up 47 points in week 1, then they put up 44 points in week 2, and then since then, 12 points, 24, 13, and then 27 in a comeback effort. So if Kubiak is this smart, got to find a way to get your ball to your best playmaker, and that's either Olave or Kamara. They're doing it with Kamara, but not Olave.
I keep saying that with Pittsburgh, just to have your play, but then have either Freiermuth over the middle or have a drag route, right? Have Chris Olave when they're dragging across the field, they're always open, right? You can't hit them, and they're just moving and they're fat. So it's like they don't throw more than 7 yards anyway, to 12 yards.
Right.
And they get paid all this money. It's just ridiculous. I think, though, with this is his first game. So he was probably instructed, hey, look, there's two man over, there's, on Olave, you're going somewhere else. And then they didn't even look. But I don't even know if they hit the tight ends that much.
No, if you look at this past week, I just had it up here. Juwan Johnson had 3 for 48, which is fine.
How many targets?
3. He caught all 3 of them for 48 yards.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, it's not anything to get excited about. But, Rattler did spray the ball all over. He completed passes to 9 different receivers that game. And the fact that Shaheed and Olave were, lowest on that list is concerning to me, for sure.
Who's the other quarterback?
Jake Haener is who they had in New Orleans. And when Carr got hurt against the Chiefs on Monday night, Haener came in. But then when they had the full week to prepare, they decided to go with Rattler over Haener.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
yep.
And Rattler too. Bear in mind, this guy, for what it's worth, he was one of the most highly recruited high school quarterbacks in the country. He comes into college with a lot of fanfare, a lot of people excited about him. Has a couple of, more than a couple of really nice games. Then he falls out of favor in Oklahoma, transfers to South Carolina. Doesn't put up huge numbers there, but he was still a 4th or 5th round pick this year. So I don't know. Maybe there's something there that maybe there's not, but I need more than a game against Tampa where Tampa scores 51 to try to properly evaluate what they have.
But on a fun note, what's going to happen there though. It's we just look at it as a fantasy, or we're watching this and trying to guess. But Olave and Rashid are going to go in his ear and go, dude, you got to get me the ball.
Right, exactly.
I got to get my I got to get catches to make money. This is a business, dude. Throw me the ball. So I think he'll probably, if he's going to stick, I think those guys will do well. I mean, Kubiak, you got to give him another shot, I guess. Tampa always plays. Tampa's playing crazy with everybody, huh?
Yes, they have been for sure. Denver Broncos is who the Saints play next, and that is that the Sunday night game? It's a Thursday night game. Thursday night game this Thursday. Saints Broncos.
Yeah, Olave, if he travels with if Surtain travels with him, he's done.
It's going to be a bad night for Olave.
And Surtain's not going to want to travel with Rashid because Rashid's got too much speed.
Right.
So he might have another bad week next week.
Might get worse before it gets better for Chris Olave. It's always good when we get to hang out with Craig Mastro, who is in the thick of it in the Fantasy Pros Championship FFPC main event, chasing those $1 million grand prizes. Craig, so much fun. I don't want to wait years for the next time I have you on one of my shows.
Well, I think you had a newborn last time we talked. How old is he?
My son is 11. He's 11 now. Yeah.
There you go, my man. I remember that.
Yeah, that was crazy too, because I was out in Vegas when my wife went into labor, and then
I remember all that. That.
That was nuts.
You're the best, man. You're the best.
Well, thank you, Craig. Back at you. This was
you do it all.
I wish you nothing but the best of luck in all your leagues going forward, and hopefully, maybe this is the year you take down that $1 million grand prize, my friend.
That'd be cool. That'd be great. Thanks.
Enjoy the game tonight. We'll talk again soon.
I will. Thanks, Eric. Good talking to you.
Good talking to you. That is Craig Mastro, ladies and gentlemen. Started week 5 in 5th place overall in the Fantasy Pros Championship. Good enough to join us on a special Monday night RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown this week. I want to thank Craig. I want to thank all of you for listening, downloading, streaming, watching. The schedule this week is a little hairy. I am not going to be I'm going to be out of town the following week, and I won't have a good enough internet signal to do video podcasts. So we're loading up this week. So tomorrow we're going to do a special high stakes fantasy football show on the Better Sports Network from 7 until 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And then at 10 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, we're going to do another RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown with Rich Kaufman is going to be coming on. Rick Kaufman is going to be coming on. He is 3rd place in the Fantasy Pros Championship, again, heading into week 6. So he and I will chop it up at 10 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Wednesday night, high stakes fantasy football hour at 10 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be joined. It's Farrell is off on Wednesday. So it will be myself and Larry Dunn, who I believe is, I can't remember. I think he was top 10 in the FFPC main event, but I have to look that up again. I'll get that for you on Wednesday. But again, a guy who's hanging out at the top of the leaderboard, Larry Dunn, will join me to co-host the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on Wednesday. Thursday, another Better Sports Network High Stakes Fantasy Football show from 7 until 9, taking you all the way up through the start of the first quarter of that Saints-Broncos game on Thursday night. And then Farrell will be back on Friday on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, myself and him doing a show at 10 p.m. Eastern time. So a lot of podcasts this week, a lot of fun, a lot of content. So if you are craving more FFPC content, we're going to have it for you this week. And if you're craving more FFPC action, try the FFPC Weekly Challenge. The Week 7 Challenge will go off sometime tonight. We'll have that loaded up for you so you can take advantage of winning as much as $2,500, entering for as little as $35, 10 or 12 team lineups, whatever you want to play. We got classic, we got slim, and it's all happening at myffpc.com. For Craig Mastro, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. We will talk with you again on this show tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the High Stakes Lowdown. a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. And thanks to Grapes for our theme music. Please review the podcast on iTunes under the RotoViz radio feed. It helps us find new listeners. Contact us via email, rotovizradio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear what you think, and follow us on Twitter @RotoVizRadio. And remember, you can always support the show by subscribing to RotoViz at a 10% discount through the NFL podcast homepage, rotoviz.com/podcast.